I'm so excited to talk to Beth Lawrence. I'm so appreciative for coming on. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Dan Whitzer. I'm the co-founder of BPHL, and I'm also a senior innovation consultant at Independence Blue Cross. And again, with the circumstances, we're really excited that we get to talk to people online and still give content out there and hopefully have people learn something today. So, Beth, again, thank you so much. Let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
Do you want to first talk about like what you do and what your business is, and then we'll go from there?
Sure. So I own two companies actually. One is called Beth Lawrence Meetings and Events, and I specialize in creating connective experiences through events, meetings, conventions, experiences. And then I also am the co-founder of the Industry Formula, which is a sales, marketing, and PR firm that helps launch hospitality brands in Philly.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I actually didn't know the second part, so that's I
Yeah.
learned something already. We've only been doing this for 30 seconds. That's amazing. So, I guess obviously with everything that's going on, you've had to really adapt and change because both industries that you're talking about have been greatly affected by
Yeah.
what's going on. So, how have you changed and innovated on what you do on a day-to-day basis with everything that's going on right now?
Sure. So when I first started seeing the writings on the wall of everyone, self-quarantining and realizing that even though my events were in May, a lot of them probably would be postponed, I started looking into virtual event solutions. So I've done a couple virtual events before, obviously with Zoom and Uber Conference and a couple of those platforms. But I really started to immerse myself in different technologies that I didn't know of before. I took a lot of trainings and also reached out to partners that truthfully know more about virtual events than I do. Either platforms or individuals that can do live streaming and things like that, and offered to be a resource for them and a referral source because first and foremost, I'm a connector and I like to be a resource and connect people and be helpful. So that's really where I came from, was how can I be helpful in this situation? And lastly, the events that postponed, I'm helping my clients to get their sponsors some ROI and start, giving them some benefits right now in terms of digital marketing so that they can start to see the benefits that they would have already seen by this time. And then we can just extend them to when the events are actually going to happen later in the year.
That's great, and it's also you were part of BPHL last year, and
Mm-hmm.
your event was absolutely awesome, and I was so
Thank you.
excited to have it be part of the festival. And it's funny from what I learned from you then. Exactly what you just explained is like why I love working with you and on different projects because you just jump on stuff quick. Like it's like, all right, this happened, I need to adjust, and that's the true innovative spirit. Is like you need to adjust all the time and roll with ambiguity. And it's funny,
Yeah.
like as you're saying that, I'm in my head, I'm like, that's exactly who you are as a person. Like, no, we're jumping to this. This is how we're gonna do this. Um,
Thank you.
so it's great to see that you were able to adjust. So going off of that, how do you feel during this coronavirus pandemic that we're going on? How can people, I guess, show off their business in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
or how can they connect with their audience in the right way? Because
Yeah.
obviously you have to toe that fine line. There's something major that's going on right now. So what
Yeah.
advice do you have for businesses and people to kind of show off what they do but also be cognizant of that?
So I feel like as an empath, I sort of have, I guess not a leg up in this situation, but I'm a very empathetic person by nature, and I would say lead with compassion. Brands, we know that as consumers, we like to buy from people that we know. We like to have a familiar voice with all of the brands that we follow, and I think that the brands that are going to be successful and the individuals that will be successful will be the ones that come at this from a compassionate and a human
Yeah.
space. We don't want a letter from the CEO that we've never heard of or that we don't know. That might be sitting on a yacht somewhere. We want someone to say, we understand what you're going through. You're home with your children trying to get work done. You may be furloughed or laid off. We want the reality of the situation. And that's really where I think brands will win out. And also, I think that if you're an executive or a CEO, you should really be working on your personal brand and reaching out to your network, just saying, hi, how are you doing? Thinking of you during this, not this is what I'm offering, this is what I can sell you, but this is how I can help. How can I help you right now? And that's why I've done my virtual co-working hours as well, because I really just wanted to, again, be a resource and someone to connect. So I think leading with this from a human perspective, knowing that we're all going through this together, which is something that, really hasn't happened in our lifetime, where we're all going through this unprecedented thing. I think laying that truth out on the line is going to get you respect. And I think that those are the brands that are going to win out in the end.
And it's nice to hear that, because I always like the brands that are authentic and they actually, bring you into a community, I feel like. And that's kind of what's happening with business now. Like, they're forced to, interact with you in a different way and not just be like, hey, buy this t-shirt. Like, no, there's more to it than that. Let's be part of this community and go through this together. So,
well, and think about it. I mean, when is the last time we've all invited everyone into our homes, right? Like on virtual videos. I mean, people are in their, I call it quarantine chic. Everyone's wearing like their sweatpants and they're trying to figure out where in their house they can have their camera. And it's really a vulnerability that we're all going through right now too. So recognizing that, I think, is going to be super important in the long run.
We should start that hashtag quarantine chic. That should be a thing.
We should. The next couple should definitely be quarantine chic.
Yes. That's awesome. So how do you feel being in the event space? How do you feel that this pandemic that's going on will change the events industry moving forward for the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say. I think there's a lot of fear out there. I've been talking to a lot of event planners, and there's been some really emotional calls that we've been on. But at the same time, I think it really reinforces the notion that we need to connect with people, because that's what we're all doing right now, right? That's what this is. Yeah. We're still connecting with everyone. And I think that people are going to be hungry for that human connection again. But I think also we're going to see a really big push toward virtual events even after this, because I think people are realizing that you can learn a lot from a virtual event. You can make connections from virtual events. And I think that you actually can expand your audience in that way. So I think in one point, I think it's going to be the same, where people are going to want to gather. But I think also it's changed and we're innovating in this space. A lot of event planners that I know are.
Yeah. And it's funny because from being in this situation where, we really can't go outside or interact with people other than this, I always liked being around people, obviously from doing BPHL and doing events. I like being around people and talking, but I never realized how truly important having a face-to-face conversation is. Just feeling the other person's vibe or just having that emotion around having that face-to-face conversation in person. It's so much different when you can't do that. And even us talking now is so different than us going down the street to a Starbucks and having a conversation.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I mean, why was the emoji invented? Because people needed to be able to express what they were feeling outside of the words that they were writing. And that's the hard thing too. If people aren't good at expressing themselves through email or messaging, I think these face-to-face conversations are so needed. And you just get to know people so much more, body language and everything else, when you're speaking to them face-to-face.
Yeah. And I to even add on top of that, I think that it's also made people feel more, you said vulnerable, because obviously people are letting them into their homes. But I even think with friends, I had never, I've lived in different places around the country and abroad. And I've never really told my friends, like, hey, I miss you. Mm-hmm. And my best friend, who I've been friends with him for literally 10 plus years, I texted him yesterday. I was like, dude, I legit miss you right now. And it's such a weird thing to say, because that's not a conversation that we've had before, but this has really made us think differently.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that too, because my husband is, he works at Del Frisco's. He's in the restaurant industry. Okay. So he has been home with me. We were only used to seeing each other 1.5 days a week, Sundays and Wednesday nights. And I actually see my best friend and co-founder for the industry formula 5 days a week. So I said to her, I miss you. I feel like I went from reverse of seeing you all the time and never seeing my husband to now being with my husband all the time and never seeing her. So it's interesting, because I feel like the bonds that we have at home are changing too. Mm-hmm. A lot of them for the better, and we're able to spend time with our families in a way that we weren't before. But we're also navigating the stresses of work in our homes. So that's difficult as well.
Definitely. Before we get to the next question, I want to let everyone know who's watching, if you have questions for Beth, definitely leave them in the comments. And when we're done all these questions, we can move to an audience Q&A. So definitely leave some questions in the comments for Beth for after this. So my next question would be, what advice, you mentioned the virtual events. So what advice would you give to someone that's looking to start a virtual event, and maybe they're not tech savvy or they've never even tried to do this before, what advice would you give them to start out?
I would say to look at your options. There's so many different virtual event options. FaceTime might work for some people. For some other situations, it may not. Zoom has been working well, but then, we're seeing obviously that there's some drawbacks to using Zoom as well. I think that there's so many different platforms, and especially now, companies that didn't serve virtual events in the past are realizing that they can tweak their technology to serve to do virtual events. So even an event app platform that I used in the past, they're actually now offering full virtual event services.
Oh, wow.
So I think doing your research and taking the time to understand the platform that you're using is definitely important. There's everything from something very simplistic to platforms where you can brand it and build it out, and it looks just like if Independence Blue Cross or BPHL was having an event. So I think that you need to figure out your audience for the event, how tech savvy they are too, because
Mhm.
you don't want there to be connectivity issues with
Yeah.
audio, what have you. I think make sure that you understand the platform, both the drawbacks and the benefits before you host an event, I think is super important. And also have a backup. I host my virtual co-working events on Zoom, but I always have a backup in case it doesn't work.
No, that's great advice. I think to add on top of that, what I love about something I am enjoying seeing about this pandemic that's going on is that people are innovating in different ways. And they're more open to things. My wife was just talking to me. My wife's a teacher, and they went from Zoom to Google Meets, and Google Meets wasn't up to the same speed as Zoom was in certain capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And teachers from around the country messaged Google and said, like, we need these certain things to make this operate. And Google's putting it into effect in 2 weeks. Like, it'll be up. And it's a unique way of having that conversation with a large company now. And there's so many other innovations that are happening from having these constraints of how do you work, how do you care for people. And it's really like made people be super creative in the things that they're doing.
Yeah, I think everyone's putting on that startup mentality now of
Yeah.
like, all right, we got to get this done. How are we going to get it done? How can we change up what we've normally done to innovate and pivot into a different direction? I think that's what I really love about this time is that you kind of have that energy of get it done any
Yeah.
way you possibly can. And I love that.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you think will be the biggest lesson to come from this coronavirus for businesses, people, whatever?
I think that, again, the importance of human connection is going to be a big lesson, but I think a lot of companies are going to have to brace themselves for individuals wanting to work from home more. I think we're seeing that productivity doesn't go down when you work from home. Obviously, having children at home can be
Yeah,
difficult, it adds something else to it, but I think people are going to want more work-life balance. They're going to want more time with their families. There's people that are doing virtual workout classes in the middle of the day and still getting all of their work done. So I think that that's going to be a huge change. And I also think the emphasis on um, doing simple things at home. Like my husband and I ordered a puzzle and we did the puzzle, right? We're not puzzle people. And then we were like, well, I guess we'll order another one. And they were sold out. So I think it's funny to see that these things that we used to take for granted, I think, are going to be more in the forefront. Like having dinner with your family every day. A lot of people can't do that. And now we're doing that every day. So I look at it with hope and think that human connection is going to be even more important and family is going to be even more important. So I'm optimistic that that's going to be the result of it.
so is that how you're staying positive during this time of uncertainty?
Oh man, I have anxiety, as I think, most people that follow me know. So my way of coping a lot of the times is to either overwork or overclean. So the first week I overworked. I was on my computer 24/7 or my phone, and my husband said the one day I started to get really anxious and he said, "You got to calm down. Like you have to turn your phone off, get away from it for a little bit." And that one day of doing that totally refocused everything for me. So that helps me stay optimistic. And I also, I read a lot. I always read one fiction and one nonfiction book. So I was reading The Power of Now,
Okay.
which is a gift a friend gave me actually some time ago, but it was so perfect for right now because it talks about how you need to live in the now. That's all you have. You don't have the past or the future, you have the now. And I am someone as a planner who's always planning for the future and
Yeah.
always thinking about the past. So I think that it's really helped me to say, what can I do today? You know, if I don't have to work 8 hours a day. If I just get these tasks done, you know, that's good enough. And I think refining that for right now and really being kind to yourself is really what's helping me to be optimistic and happy during this time.
No, I agree. I have anxiety as well, and so does my wife. So we're both like it's funny because we're trying to interact with each other, and we deal with it in different ways. Um, but it's nice to hear how you're coping with it and having that thought for. I'm the same. Like I'll just pace around the house, and she's like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I just need to do something. Like walk,
Yep.
build something.
Yep. I
I
need
just
to wipe the counter again. I need to go
yeah
for a run, like
yeah
something. And I'm very lucky that I have that mirror in my husband where
yeah
he knows before I do when I'm getting into that
yeah.
space, and is very very good at saying, you know, maybe you should take a break or maybe approach things this way. So having that counterbalance in my life is super important.
Yeah. And I do hope that people being at home and having to, not be able to go anywhere, this will help them with learning about themselves as well and how they can deal with certain things like this.
Yeah.
Um, so, what what is your biggest hope for the days after isolation and the quarantine? And I mean that in the sense of like for businesses, for events. What do you kind of hope for? What will happen after this?
Wow. I think that my biggest hope is I'm hoping people will calm down a little bit more. I think in our culture, it's all about go, go, go. And I'm realizing how much I used to fit into one day.
Yeah.
So I think that there will be a refinement of really taking back people taking back their own time.
Hmm.
And I think we were getting into a place where there were so many events, right? Every single day there were 4 or 5 networking events you could attend. And that's great. And networking is a huge part of who I am. But I think people are going to start being more choosy about how they spend their time in a good way.
Yeah.
And realizing the toll that, you know, always being on can take on your mental health. For businesses, I think that looking at the businesses that are helping people, you know, that their first instinct is to help people during this.
Yeah.
And I think that spirit of how can we help the greater good and how can we contribute to society as a whole, I think is going to still stick there. And I think again, the companies that went out are going to be the companies that think, what resources do we have that other people can use right now? Forget about money. You know, how can we barter services? How can we give back to the community? I'm hoping that that's going to continue. And I also hope that people realize how, you know, we define essential worker isn't necessarily what an essential worker is in a time like this. And,
Yeah.
you know, to really put the spotlight on the individuals who are working really hard right now, harder than they've ever worked and risking themselves, but also people that are laid off and furloughed, and realizing the importance of going to a restaurant with your family, or, you know, being able to just go to the grocery store every day. These things that we take for granted, I'm hoping people will realize just how special these day-to-day things are and how privileged we all are.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think this is going to make people innovate in different ways as well, because I think that having that, now that we see that we need that human connection, and a lot of people for solutioning will be like digital, digital, digital. I
Mhm.
really think that this experience will make people's mindsets kind of change a little bit and think about the person, or how can we interact with a person
Yeah.
when creating something new or innovating.
Right. And thinking of the person behind the customer,
Yeah.
not just, you know, the customer. Really looking at your customer base and looking at all of the factors that you have on them, and thinking, how can we tailor our messaging, our products, our services to our customers, like these people that have
Mhm.
invested in us, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So again, I want to reiterate that if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We do have a question that I will ask.
Yeah.
It's from Michelle Histon, who's also the other co-founder of
Hi,
BPHL.
Michelle.
It's a great question. So she says, Beth, have you seen anything good happening with social/networking virtually? It's such a huge part of events overall, but can feel forced with in person, maybe more so online. Any thoughts yet?
Yeah, so I've been doing like I said, the virtual co-working hours, which have been free, and then the industry formula every week. We have a virtual happy hour for people in the industry that, you know, just want to connect. And I think the one thing that I'm noticing is because we're all in this situation together, we all have this base that we're coming from
Mhm.
where we all immediately know where each other is in the world, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, each individual's situation is different in terms of having children, not having children, full-time, freelance, etc. But I think just having that one space that we can all come from really is a great equalizer. And I found that it's actually easier to make connections right now. Um, Virtually, there can be some challenges when it comes to if there's 12 people on your screen trying to engage everybody, but I
Yeah.
really work as a moderator, and I think that that's a huge thing when you're hosting a virtual networking event, to have a moderator, to have at least some question prompts for people. Otherwise, you might just get people, for happy hour just holding a drink and kind of staring at each other. So like I'll go through and I'll call on someone and say, how are you doing during this time? How can we help you? Or how are you and your family? And I think that once people start talking and get comfortable, I think everyone else starts to kind of follow suit. And I also think that Zoom is great and face-to-face calls are wonderful, but some people don't want to be seen. So I think that's also something to navigate, is making sure that you have an audio option so people can be heard, but they don't necessarily have to feel that they have to make themselves up for the camera or anything like that.
How do you, while you're talking, I was thinking, when it's nice, obviously, now that we have that common issue that we can talk about. Like, you can literally talk to anyone because
Right.
there's at least one thing in common that you
Yeah.
have. How do you steer the conversation away from that in a networking environment? Because obviously you could talk for hours about
Right.
just how you're dealing with that. How do you kind of pull the conversation away of like, no, let's make a meaningful connection about something else,
Yeah.
other than just that?
I always like to ask what things, a friend actually asked me this on a call, and I've been asking people, what have you done during the quarantine that you don't normally do?
Oh, that's nice.
So my one friend, she's running outside every day. She never ran before. Or for me, I'm like growing romaine lettuce in my kitchen. I've never done that in my life,
That's
but I was
awesome.
like, nah, I have 3 weeks. Might as well try it. So it's cool because you also get to know people's, routines and what they like. Some people are trying virtual workout classes they've never tried. I have a friend that's trying to make a bunch of different cocktails that he never knew how to make. So you get to know people's hobbies as well.
Hmm.
And I think I I wouldn't say deviating the conversation away from it, because I think that it is something that we can all talk about right now. But then once you start talking about hobbies or things you've watched or listened to, what podcasts you've listened to, what books you've read, then you start to find more commonalities outside of this.
Yeah. No, that's great. What's it called? Well, I appreciate this conversation. This has been
Yeah.
great. I've learned new things. I hope everyone else has learned new things. Um, is there anything else you wanted to just mention to people to kind of, get them through this time?
I mean, I would say so. On my Instagram every week, I'm doing personal branding tips, because again, I think that that's super important right now, is getting yourself out there as a thought leader and remaining visible, because I think that everyone will start to connect again, and things will start to ramp up again, and you don't want to be the person that was so perhaps crippled by fear that you or uncertainty that you didn't want to put yourself out there. So I would say that, and I would also say don't be afraid to still sell your services in a way that feels authentic and good to you. I don't like the templated messages on LinkedIn. Everyone that follows me knows that. But if people reach out to me right now and they say, look, this is what I'm offering, I really think that we could connect and we could mutually benefit each other, I'll definitely take a call. So I would say that. And I would also say, try to reach out to people in your network that you haven't reached out to in years and see what comes of it. I mean, you never know what opportunities could come, either just a connection or a friendship or even a job opportunity. So just keep up hope, everybody.
No, that's great. I love the template thing. I hate those as well.
it
And
it like
so
boils
many.
my blood, and I feel bad because these people are probably really nice people, but
I
i
know.
i just want to say, you couldn't even write my name in there, like, it's
Yeah.
14 links, like I
Yeah.
just can't read that. I
I know,
can't.
but it goes back to what you said off the start, is that businesses and people, you have to be authentic. And
Hmm.
that's really something that people are, I feel, more cognizant of right now, is that you
Yeah.
have to be authentic, and genuine as well.
Yeah.
You just be a good person as
Yeah.
a whole, whether you're a
Be
company or
yourself.
not. Yeah.
Right. Just be
Don't,
yourself, like
yeah.
don't be something that you wrote down 6 months ago that you just fill in the blanks. I can't take it.
Yeah, and that's great info for people. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the first episode
Yes.
of the Facebook Live for BPHL, and yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon, and obviously in person once this is all over. So
Yes.
thank you again for being on here.
Thanks for having me. It was
Yeah,
great.
of course. All right, see you everyone. See you for the next
Bye.
episode. We'll have one next week. So come back. All right, see ya.